Hello there, and welcome to my first video diary on my tarantula collection. And this is it. This is my tarantula collection. Around about 28 species of tarantula I think I've got. 27, 28 I think. And yeah, I've been keeping them since about 2008. I bought my first tarantula, and I got serious 2011. I think I started keeping slings, which is baby tarantulas for those who don't know. Slings here, these are all slings in these jars. These are arboreal slings, which means obviously they like to live in the trees, and terrestrial ones, ground dwelling species, in these tubs here, also in these tubs up here. I'm doing this really as a, quickly, there's my Poecilotheria ornata, arboreal. I've had this one 2 years, 1 centimetre when I had her. Now round about the sort of 4-inch mark, maybe 5 inches at a push. So here's a typical arboreal setup. It's been quite early in the morning here, so you can see there's a bit of condensation on the bottom there because it's dropped cool in the night. I use an oil-filled radiator for my heat source, which is left on, turned down at night, and then turn the heat up during the day. You can see here on the top shelf it's now 22.8 degrees. So yes, typical arboreal setup here. I've got quite a decent layer of sub in there. Small water bowl. You only need a very small water bowl. Don't use water bowls on slings, or I wouldn't recommend on juveniles either, because they can fall in and drown. The sphagnum moss, which you can just see at the front there, is a fantastic way of keeping humidity up. Worth noting that not all tarantulas will require a sub. Will require high humidity. But the Poecilotherias, they like a high humidity. So there's my ornata, fantastic tarantula. These Braplast tubs are fantastic. You can house, there's my Lacidura paraibana there. You can house terrestrials and arboreals in these. The Lacidura paraibana, which you can see, which is the sun pink. You can just see at the back there, small cave shelter, which it uses quite regularly. This one's going to be rehoused soon. I had this one in 2011 as well. This one was probably 2 centimetres when I got it. A good 5-6 inches now. Voracious eater. Certainly not an aggressive species. Mine is an aggressive, but you don't want to dangle your fingers in the tub because it just thinks everything that comes anywhere near it is food, and it just bites at it. But not one I recommend handling. Certainly not this one anyway, not unless you want to get your fingers bit. Handling is a whole other subject which we can get to at a later, more in-depth one. It's very much down to the individual. Some people happily handle their tarantulas. I've handled most of mine, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I don't do it as a rule. I don't really like to do it. It can stress the tarantula out. As a whole, they're animals that live on their own. They don't need hugs. They don't want to be handled. They don't particularly like being handled. So my advice is don't do it. But it's down to the individual. So there's quite a good shot there of my paraibana. I've also got here. This is my confirmed mature male Pamphobetus ultramarinus, molted about 2 weeks ago now. I'm trying to find this little fella a female. Here you can see his setup. Again, a cave at the back. Because he's an adult, I can put a much bigger water bowl in. There's no danger of him falling in that and drowning. Plenty of the sphagnum moss there to keep the humidity up here. A bit of artificial plants there. Merely cosmetic, really, artificial plants. Certainly use them in the arboreal setups because Poecilotherias do like it dark and they like to sort of stay out of the light, so it's somewhere that it can retreat and hide. The tank next to it, I've got my subfuchsia, which is my favourite pokey. this one comes out nowhere near as often as what the ornata comes out. This sub-adult, my subfuchsia is, it's actually bigger than my ornata. It was a juvenile when I had it. Personally, I think the best pokey to get, if you can find one as a starter, mine is supremely docile. Never had any problems with her at all. It's confirmed female, that one is. Unfortunately, she's not out. I've got some of these are juveniles, some slings. That one at the top there you can just see is my Pocothera metallica, which was beautifully blue after its last molt. It's due another molt soon now. And down here I've got my Venezuelan sun tiger, which you can, is there. Not a very good shot at all. I do apologise for my atrocious camera use here. Again, an arboreal species. These tubs are fine to keep slings, juveniles in, and then just rehouse them once they get too big for the tubs. But say they're sound for keeping terrestrials and arboreals in. It's just a case of lying your cork bark down flat and having a deep substrate, or you can have shallower substrate and the cork bark up vertically for arboreals. Simple as that. The advice I would give, you can certainly notice on these tubs here, I melt holes in the base as well as around the top to keep an airflow. It's, I've found personally, the best way to avoid mould growing in the enclosures. Mould growth is not good. You need to remove it if it continues. Spider out, clean the whole tub out and start again. Yeah, it's not good, that isn't. You really want to avoid that. I'm not going to go too in depth, but certainly if you're reading up on them, read up about mould growth. There's also things like mites you need to read up about. I fortunately have sidestepped that problem. I've never had a problem with mites. Again, I'm not going to get into that now. This really is just a quick introduction video just to some of the tarantulas that I have. On there is my latest edition. That's my M. balfouri. That's 1 centimetre sling in there. I've got 3 M. balfouris, all different sizes. Another recent one here, which I'm guessing I've just seen run away. Yeah, you can't see it. That's my Emurinus. There's one of my balfouris down there actually. Yeah, so really, the housing, as you can see, you can get these jars very easily, very cheap to buy. Again, holes in the bottom and the top and in the lid, plenty of airflow. Vertical cork bark in every single one, a bit of artificial plant. I have put, you'll notice if you can see that the jar is about at a minimum of a quarter, if not half full of substrate, because arboreal slings actually will burrow. They will feel sort of, if they feel nervous or stressed or whatever, they will make a burrow at the base. And my Miranda on the end there stayed in her burrow for a long time before she came out. I say she could well be a he, I don't know yet. And the terrestrial ones, obviously you don't need the height, so you can put these in flatter containers. Again, a good layer of substrates needed so they can burrow, some of them to hide under. A lot of them will spin webs to create, but always provide a small piece of cork bark or something like that. All of mine have got the sphagnum moss in to keep the humidity up, but check that your tarantula that you're getting does need humidity. You can just see my Tigrin Weselli at the back there. And some tarantulas don't need high humidity. The Chilean rose is one that prefers it drier. I believe a lot of avics prefer a drier environment. That's my Pocothera regalis there. There's another typical setup, bit of artificial plant, small water bowl, and a nice piece of cork bark. Although my regalis, unlike the subfuchsia, does stay out a lot of the time. That's my Psalmolpus pulcher setup there, another arboreal setup. So you can see pretty much the setup really is very basic. I've got my live foods here. I've got a mixture of crickets, large mealworms, small and large calciworms and waxworms. The small calciworms are superb, in my opinion, for feeding slings on. Absolutely superb. I just drop a few food scraps to keep them alive for longer. And feeding really, you sort of about once, maybe twice a week. Just see how your tarantula feeds. Certainly don't get into a panic if your tarantula isn't feeding. They can go for long periods of time not requiring food, so certainly don't worry about that initially. They'll feed when they're hungry. Heating, again, like I say, my heating is done through an oil-filled radiator. I bought this for 30 quid. It keeps my room amply warm. for the tarantulas. You don't need to have searing heat. So yeah, this for my first video. I'm going to wrap this up now, and I hope you've enjoyed this quick skim. I will be going into far more in-depth videos in the future. I just wanted to just rattle off my first one, see how it goes, see if I got any interest. So I hope you've enjoyed this very brief skim over my collection. I will be doing more in the future. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.